appoints committees and who's on them, how do you imagine leadership elections going in this? Would that be weighed too, or would it be one vote for every legislator?
There you go.
I'm going to shoot off the cuff here and then turn the mic over to my co-partner. I think for leadership, if I was asked about that, I would want equal input from everybody into leadership. In the way our legislature does business, leadership's so important. Talking about weight, there's the weight.
So it's not just leadership, but we've now kind of broken up into caucuses, which is, so we have, particular caucuses that lean certain ways, or then you have particular party issues. So you have this kind of fractions already, or factions and fractions already in with the, I could see people that came from big counties that had full votes, want to argue that they should be more powerful in electing the leadership of the legislature, or electing a caucus leader, and the reason is because I come from Casper, Joe comes from Cheyenne. I can certainly see that playing into the power plays that happen, and us by saying it won't happen, that will happen as power develops, and it will get paid attention to. Is that also kind of part of what you were thinking about, Senator Warner?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Kirby.
Mr. Chairman, that is possibly an issue. I see you, if we were at a chessboard looking ahead a few moves. And so possibly that is an issue that some discussion should be had on that constitutional amendment.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the kind of thing that would be good to chisel in stone as far as it can be done legally, with not legislation.
Certainly you could do it with respect to electing the leadership in the House and the Senate, but you couldn't change the makeup of the party caucuses or any other private caucus, because they would have freedom of speech and association.
Yes, they've had some very favorable opinions on that, haven't they?
Yeah. Anyway, anybody else from the committee? I thought, Ms. Baum, we'll go to you, and then I thought maybe we'd let Mr. Director opine on any, if he wishes to opine on any practical difficulties with waiting for land. But Ms. Baum, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't take much more of your time, but this is an instance where I answered a question off the cuff and then later thought of a little bit more I'd like to say. So when you spoke about the Niobrara representative or senator having 25% of a vote, and I pointed out that Hot Springs then has half a vote, and then all those counties had 3/4 of a vote. I should have gone up a little farther and pointed out, for instance, Converse County gets 2 representatives. Each of those representatives gets 0.75 of a vote. So a representative from Converse County, one representative of their 2 has the same vote as Weston County's person. So when we broke up okay, let me move up farther. Campbell County has 5 representatives. They get each 0.9 of a vote. So it makes that discrepancy smaller as the individuals walking around the halls of our state house. A representative from Campbell has 0.9 of a vote. A representative from Weston has 0.75 of a vote.
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
You think the people back home will get this? And, it's already confusing, the legislative districts. But then when we're down in Cheyenne and we have something coming up, and the vote count is 13.25 to, will people understand that? And which way did our guy vote? And will they be confused? Mr. Curley?
If up on the board in the legislature is the figure needed for passage, and then you watch the number come up, everybody will understand you fell short, you made it.
Chairman Knapp?
So in the break room, if I eat 0.9% of a cupcake, that was just on my mind.
With everybody's permission from the committee, Mr. Director, did you want to talk about any practical difficulties you can see? And I realize we're kind of putting you on the spot, and you can decline. But I know you won't.
Mr. Chairman, I do think there are very real practical difficulties associated with any weighted voting scheme in a state legislature. And you may alleviate one difficulty, which is committee voting, which I was trying to work my head around. And maybe that's the reason there's no legislature that does it right now, is committee voting. But I don't understand how you can, our Constitution says each bill has to go to committee. That's a constitutional requirement. And if you've got weighted voting on the floor but not in committee,
Yeah.
I don't know how that's equal representation. And also the courts that have looked at this, and there's not been many, because no legislature has it. So there's no law to challenge, no weighted voting to challenge. But they say that you can't really just boil down equal representation to the weight of voting of your representative. The representative from Niobrara County with 0.5% of the vote still gets the ear of the governor, still gets the ear of agency directors, still gets to question people on a witness stand. And so that's what those courts found was the violation, is that those smaller districts actually got overrepresented because of non-voting related issues. And maybe they got underrepresented in some ways in the voting issue then, too. Finally, I'd say that the Wyoming constitutional considerations are very real. And Oklahoma really found a provision of their constitution requiring bills to only be passed by a majority of all those members elected to be violated by a weighted voting scheme. So
We essentially have the same thing.
we do, and we've got a bunch of other provisions that are either very close or questionable if weighted voting is considered too, from election of presiding officers to calling a special session to impeachment provisions to the 2/3 vote requirement for introduction in a special session, which is uniquely Wyoming.
Not a special session, but a budget
Not,
session.
sorry, for a budget, bill on introduction in the
Yep.
budget session. So anyway, Mr. Chairman, I don't know, certainly no federal court has said, to my knowledge, that you can't do this in Wyoming. And they certainly have upheld local, mainly East Coast entities doing it, townships, counties. Whether, and I think actually with the professor's case, what the Supreme Court was saying there is a local county commission or county board doesn't raise constitutional federal issues. But they've never held that in when a legislature using weighted voting is presented to them. And I don't know if that question's ever been presented to the U.S. Supreme Court. To my knowledge, it hasn't been.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director. Just thinking out loud, the problems of the committees, I think people don't think committees are very important, but they're an integral part of the process, and they are specified in the Constitution of the Ulster Voting Committee, and reported out. And, apparently we have one legislator that doesn't even think committees are important. They don't have to go during the summer, I guess. But they're amazingly powerful things, and since the committees are appointed by the presiding officer, and you could have lots of shenanigans there if the votes in the committee were different than the votes on the floor. Or you could have shenanigans if the votes were the same. If they were fractional votes, you could make sure that the committee leaned a specific way by putting people with philosophies and pairing them based on their votes in some cases, so it's complicated, but we'll keep going on this. Thank you very much. What else you guys got? Who would like to address us and are there other proposals? We've got lots out there. Come on forward, please. Thank you both, Ms. Baumann, Mr. Curley, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate
Stay
it.
here. I will.
How do you do, ma'am?
Good, thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman, members of the committee, LSO staff, thank you for being here tonight. This is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. And tonight, we've been presented with at least 2 different proposals that follow both the Wyoming Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. And because each legislator has taken an oath to uphold the constitutions, I think we have a reasonable expectation that we should make a sincere effort to follow both constitutions. That being said, I also want to comment on what the court case that Commissioner Ertman said, that kind of refers to any powers not reserved to the federal government is granted to the states. So, and I also want to point out that I feel that it's a dangerous thing to say that we can disregard our Constitution. We're not talking about laws, we're talking about the Constitution, and I just feel that this is a guiding document, and if we are going to feel free to say that we can disregard one part, and I think that's a dangerous precedent to set.
Of course, we do have court coverage on this one.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
get that right.
I agree, but we're talking court coverage, not, anyway, so that goes back to court cases such as Commissioner Ertman talked about. So what I would like to present is what we have come to call the Founder's Plan. And it is a nice hybrid plan that you don't have a huge legislature, and you also you don't have weighted voting. You have a individual, a whole person with a whole vote. And so this plan preserves the county boundaries as legislative districts while minimizing population disparities in compliance with the Wyoming Constitution and the federal legal standards. The Founders Plan uses formulas which ensure voting power deviations stay below 1.4 in the House, 1.4% in the House, and 3.8% in the Senate, and can be used regardless of any census results. Okay, this plan guarantees that each county has at least one representative and senator. The benefits is that you don't have to redistrict. That's already set. We follow the districts that are set up in the Constitution. It is just a apportionment, and it is used a fixed formula. So you apply the formula, and you don't have a lot of complaining, arguing, and you don't have the fractional voting, so you don't have to worry about whether you have a full or half partial vote in the committees, or you all have one vote. This aligns with Wyoming's geographic and demographic needs and legal precedents. So anyway, so that's the benefits of this one. It doesn't, the deviations are a little bit greater than if you would use a weighted voting, but it still stays within limits. In the court case in 1973, held that deviations under 10% are presumptively constitutional for state legislative districts. Larger deviations require justifications by legitimate state interests, such as preserving political subdivisions and avoiding gerrymandering. So this is a basic plan that just has a formula that you apply to the counties in regards to the census.
And then if I could ask, where does the formula come from? Is it the formula from the Constitution?
I will let
Okay,
Tricia
you're getting to that, okay.
discuss that.
And your name again, ma'am,
My
please?
name is Sue Morales, I'm sorry.
Morales?
Morales, M-I-R-E-L-E-S.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, Senator, Constitutional District Senator of Weston County.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Back to you, Ms. Bowman.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't have a different hat to put on to sit with this second proposal. I just want one senator and one rep from every county, and the majority of the concerned citizens in Weston County are for this founder's plan. That's what they like. And the formula you asked where that came from, I made it up. And basically I set boundaries of, I want to keep the legislature about the same size as it is now. I want at least one senator and one representative from each county. What is the population of the state? What is the population of each county? How do I have to manipulate those numbers into a formula that's going to work? And so that I created this formula. The interesting thing about it is I checked it with, because this plan is similar to the 1990 plan, or after the 1990 census. And so I checked my results with the 1990. So back then, Laramie County had 10 reps. This plan has 11. And I think Converse County had 2 reps. This plan has 2 reps. It kind of came out about the same as that. And that's hence we named it the Founders Plan, because that's basically back then they were trying to go with the Constitution. We're looking at, so I would guess that your brain is going into this 10% deviation in population. Definitely the deviation is greater in this plan. We looked at it at a different way, which I think should be presented to the court, and went with voting power on the floor.
Yeah.
And so there's a table in here. For instance, table 2, the Senate population study using a district deviation formula. If you look at that, Niobrara has 2,268 people in the last census. That's 0.39% of the state. And yeah, they get a senator. And there's a total of 29 senators total in the plan, so they have 1 out of 29 voting weight, which is 3.45% of the weight on the floor. And so they have 0.39% of the population, but they have 3.45% of weight on the floor. So we set sideboards where it can't be greater than 3.8, and they fall within that. Well, when I applied the formula then down below at the bottom to Laramie County, I only came up with them getting 3 senators, and so they have 17.35% of the population of Wyoming. They were only getting 10% of the vote on the floor. So there's a sideboard in the plan that says that's not doable, that's outside of the 3.8 sideboard. And so Laramie gets another senator due to that sideboard. So now they have 17.35% of the population of the state, and they have 13.8% of the vote on the floor, which is a deviation of 3.5% between their population and their floor vote. And I got this sideboard idea from Senator Driscoll. And whether you go with this proposal or the weighted proposal, or you come up with another proposal, if you do, I like Senator Driscoll's idea of having sideboards, because he said to me he feels like it's kind of a free-for-all. There's like not enough sideboards is a good word for whatever Wyoming chooses to do in the future. I think that's a good idea, but anyway, that's how this got done. That's the formula.
Okay, all right, any questions from the committee? I'm missing something here, so I must be missing something. So Niobrara gets one senator, right? So that senator represents, it's 2,200 people.
Yes, sir.
And if you were to carry that same number out, then Laramie County ought to get 50 senators, 50. That would make their votes in Laramie County proportional to the votes in Niobrara County. But you said they don't get 50 senators, they get, how many, you said?
4.
4. Well, how is that fair in any sense of the way, and how would that conform with the United States Constitution about having equal representation?
This plan relies on the sentence in the last page of the proposal is the founder's plan constitutional. And that's the sentence that Sue read is larger deviations require justification by legitimate state interests.
Okay, so the legitimate interest you're trying to establish is that counties deserve this representation based on their boundaries, of at least one representative and one senator.
Yes.
I understand that completely. How would Laramie County possibly ever agree that this is in their best interest, or Natrona County, or Campbell County, or my county, Fremont County? How could that be in their best interest at the same time?
I think it's always in the.
Go ahead, yes, you betcha.
I think it's always in the best interest to follow the Constitution. I realize that they might not think that this is enough voting power, but I always think it's in the best interest of Wyoming for its legislators to follow the Constitution.
But we also have to follow the federal Constitution, right? Including the 14th Amendment. So show me how it follows that. I don't think it does.
I refer back to the court case that Commissioner Ertman referenced, that any powers not granted to the federal government are reserved to the states. And I think that the state should be allowed to set how we are going to set our boundaries.
Yeah, just working with you on this. The post-Civil War amendments about voting power and disenfranchise of people, I mean, they came about to make sure that blacks who had been former slaves were going to be able to vote and have equal representation. And so it was a gigantic insertion of policy in state government, but it held and it happened. And so that kind of the same thing with regard to whether Cheyenne gets enough votes compared to Niobrara. Go ahead.
I would also like to bring up that at the federal level, every state, no matter how big or how small it is in size, it gets 2 senators.
It does, but you know why? Because it's in the U.S. Constitution. That is the great compromise that brought the small states and the big states together, and it is specifically enumerated in the federal Constitution. State legislatures aren't enumerated. Nothing but the 14th Amendment is there, loud and clear. Ms. Hoffman.
I guess I would like to refer back to the Senate committees in Cheyenne. When people more intelligent than I and with a lot more power than I have expressed support for this plan, and they want to have it relitigated because the 14th Amendment does not use the words one man, one vote. That's a judicial interpretation.
It is.
And they would like to see that put forth through this Supreme Court, who, the person who's been there the longest is Clarence Thomas from 1991.
Right.
The rest of them have never been involved in that issue from the Gorin case. And I guess it's a proposal for the committee to just consider
Sure.
if you want to go there.
I might,
Go ahead,
Mr. Chairman?
and then we'll go to Senator Bonner, he's got a question.
I might say that I believe that Secretary Chuck Gray has expressed some
Yeah.
support, and so at some point he might want to weigh in on that.
You bet, and we definitely keep him on them. He's definitely willing to come, we want him to come and talk to us. Senator Bonner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I think, we'll get into the crux of the issue here is how do we, navigate our requirements in the federal constitution here, and, as somebody, I'll just share right now, when I started voting about 20 years ago, I was in Eastern Commerce County, and my House district went all the way up to this community. And so I'm really proud of the work that we did this past session, deviating from that 10% requirement in, I think, a very logical way. For some folks in Sheridan County, I believe, that example sticks out in my mind where you don't have 200-300 people in a county that are just kind of lumped into the neighboring county to meet that exact standard. But I'm also, I'm going down the hallway going to the Senate, I see in the 80s in particular, the 70s, there were combined counties in the Senate at least. I think Congressman Niobrara worked together. If we're going to give ourselves the best chance possible to win the court case, not just to have a court case, but to win it, would you consider something like that? Well, we do it here at county boundaries, but we do have some combination to get a little bit closer to the current requirements, I guess.
That would make it easier for us potentially respond.
Chairman, I would support that as long as the state constitution is properly amended to say that.
There's another thing we could do, we could actually change the county boundaries. And we could change the county boundaries over time and then make sure they could evolve to be like the legislative districts, and they would follow your rule perfectly. They would have proportional representation. We'd have to have fluid counties because population grows differently over time in Wyoming. What do you think of that one? Go ahead.
I think that would be just gerrymandering all over again. I don't think that would be a good idea, but it's possible. I haven't thought of all the possibilities or anything. And I would like to just reiterate what Tricia said, that let's follow the Wyoming Constitution, however we need to do that. Whether it's combining two counties or whatever it is, but let's follow the Wyoming Constitution.
In addition to the weekly printed version of the newsletter journal, we also promote our community and share important information on our award-winning website, newslj.com, and in our weekly email newsletter, Nuke Now. We also connect with readers through various social media platforms and invite you to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can even take a look at a recent meeting of the City Council, School Board, or County Commission on our YouTube channel. We do hope that you will go to newslj.com and subscribe today, and we look forward to making all of our great content available to you. But regardless of your level of support, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for doing your part to preserve a free and independent local press.
Whether we need to amend it or
Yeah.
make a plan of how to follow it.
So our oath is actually to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state. So we have to do both.
Exactly.
We're having a hard time. And we actually, ever since Marbury versus Madison and later, the case about the bank, I can't remember, that both established judicial review of the Constitution. That means that what the court says about the Constitution, you may not like it, but it turns out it's important. That's what the words of the Constitution say. That's a big thing. So you have to follow the court cases too. So we're trying to follow them. Go ahead.
What are you guys going to say?
So I was going to say that, Mr. Chairman, the court cases can be overturned.
Sure.
The words on the Constitution can't be changed unless it's amended. So anyway, I don't know what the solution is, but there are a couple different plans out there. And so anyway,
Thank you. Anybody else on the Senate amendments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just want to thank all of you guys for how much hard work you put into this and giving us so much to think about. And we may not come up with an exact solution tonight, but getting this discussion in depth is really good. And maybe it's making you rethink some ideas too. So I really hope that we could even have another proposal that might look at amending the Constitution, like Senator Boner said. He and Senator Case have both dug into redistricting very deep because they were on this committee during redistricting. So they have knowledge that I don't have, quite frankly. I have been scouring everything you sent us all day long, trying to understand it. So I really appreciate your explanations. And I would request next time, and as we move forward, maybe giving us visual maps as well as to what something would look like. So, you know, and comparing what our plan is now to a map that you might have, and take into account those communities of interest, like I was talking about with the previous proposal. How would that election look in Natrona County or in somewhere with multiple districts right now, where they're broken up into more rural and more urban communities? That is a real concern every time we do redistricting, because we don't want people to be overly, outweighted and aligned with someone else. And so it's an important metric for you guys to keep in mind as you go forward. But thank you so much for all of this hard work and formulas.
Which brings us to Mr. Curley holding a map.
Well, yes, thank you.
Can't hear you on the microphone. Maybe somebody else could hold it now. And you can use the microphone. And the other case I was thinking of was McCullough versus Maryland, but it wasn't really on point to judicial review. It was more about the supremacy clause. But anyway, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, as to the map, we have one. If you would appreciate more, let us know. Can we submit this, or I think you have submit this?
We'll take it. The best thing we can do is we want to put all this on our website. And so I don't know how we can do that, but we can take a picture of that or something. We can do something.
Trying to figure it out.
We'll figure that out. We'll take it. We're gonna put it in his office, maybe.
Thank you on that. May I also just
Go ahead.
point out that in my experience in Wyoming, there's often a lot of people that dislike judicial review, but strongly believe the government should follow state constitution. In my view, they're the same baby in the same basket. If you only have and can have and need to have judicial review if you have a constitution that controls what the legislature does. They all together.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So we're gonna take I recognize some good names on that now.
If I could describe it quickly.
You got, grab her microphone, if you wanna hold it, or however it works.
This is a map of just our local area, and though I personally am just as interested in the rights of the people in Niobrara and the people in Laramie as I am in Weston County when it comes to apportionment, I want that clear. This shows you what has happened to Weston County in the last districting. So the red lines are our representative districts. And you can see the red line goes through Weston County. And the red name there is Representative Nyman. God bless him, we love him. Representative Nyman also has Crook County, and he resides in Crook County. The bottom red box takes the bottom half of Weston County, which is represented by Representative Williams. God bless him, we love him. But he also has all of Niobrara and part of Goshen, and he lives in Niobrara. The green part at the top is a senatorial district, so Weston County again is cut in half, and Senator Driscoll has the top half of Weston, all of Crook, and part of Campbell, and he resides in Crook County. And then the bottom green part is Senator Steinmetz, and she has the bottom half of Weston, all of Niobrara, and of course, and all of Goshen. And so, none of them live in our county, and we respect them all, and we think they're doing the best they can. So this do not take this personally, but if Representative Williams and Representative Nyman vote against each other, Weston County, in my opinion, has no say in that vote. And then if Goshen County's best interest is one thing, and Niobrara's best interest is another thing, and Weston County's best interest is a third thing, Senator Steinmetz has to juggle that and figure out how to make a vote. Because counties have county seats, and those county seats need represented, Senator Chairman. We have elections. Our county clerk right now has to do an election for the north half, an election for the south half, and then it has to get merged with Crook County's election and part of Campbell's election. And we found that can create a bit of an issue if one of the clerks does something wrong. I mean, there's so many issues. The money comes to the county seat. How does Senator Steinmetz, she's got to get money to 3 county seats, or do you count it as 2.5 county seats? You know what, we would just like to see, yeah, 3.
Yeah, your point is loud and clear.
Okay.
But my point is that Weston County has an advantage, that they have 4 people pulling for them if you play your cards right. Maybe it doesn't feel like it all the time, but I'm looking, I see 3 of the 4 are here tonight, right now. Now, if it was Joe Smith and he was your representative and we were in Lusk and he had 0.25 votes, do you think the rest of them would come and sit in on your county commission meeting? It works both ways. And as long as we're bigger in Wyoming than just our district and just our interest, it can work very well. But there you go. It's a good point. Thank you, Ms. Bond.
I would just like to thank the chairman and everyone who traveled here for looking outside the box and looking at this calmly and trying to find a solution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been very good. Thank you. We need more public comment? Anybody else want to address the committee? Do you have any more proposals? Yes, sir. I recognize this fella. His beard precedes it. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you guys. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Appreciate you coming up here and looking at this issue. I guess I have a kind of a similar proposal to the one that was just presented. And my deal is even simpler, I guess, the way I see it. Is basically every county gets the 1 senator and 1 representative for each county. And I know our Constitution, I didn't bring it up with me, but talks about talks about how the senators and representatives are apportioned. And I think it's not totally clear, but it does sound like they will change it according to population. And I mean, ideally, and it isn't spelled out one way or the other in Wyoming Constitution, it would be similar to the federal Constitution, like it says there directly, each state will get 2. And I mean, I guess what I would see is, I know the one plan had a different proportion for senators and for representatives, but I would say, you know, if we just take and basically somewhere a number between 9,000 and 10,000, and any states or any counties that have less than, say, 10,000, they would get a representative. So I mean, that would include Niobrara, clear up to almost Converse County. Then once you double that number, you would get 2 and so forth and so on as you go. And you'd end up with numbers similar to what we have in our legislature now. And I guess the reason I come at it this way is I look at when our founders started this country. The big issue there was the small states, like you already mentioned, Senator Case. They came up with a compromise because they knew if they didn't have at least 2 senators voting, they would never get any say in what would happen in the country. And we're seeing the same thing in our state now, countywide. The small counties basically have no say in what happens in our state. And I go back to the Constitution. What's the first thing? We, the people. Our country's government starts with the grassroots. It starts with individual people. And so we've got to work from the ground up. We can't really come from the top down. And I know there's arguments that counties are just subdivisions of the state. But I think that needs to be challenged because in reality, each of us people makes up part of a county. And so if I'm not quite in the smallest county, I have land in the smallest county, Niobrara, but it's really uncomfortable to think that basically people in Niobrara have very little say in what happens in our state. I mean, one way or the other. I mean, they don't have it because they don't have their own representative and their own senator. And I think that's important. And it just goes back to that whole deal. And I mean, you know, we keep talking about the 14th Amendment. And I've been looking at it quite a bit here. And one thing that I got to looking at, and I don't know, sometimes I don't understand lawyers and judges because they don't always, you're talking about common sense earlier. Sometimes they seem to have very little common sense. But you look at the Section 2 of the 14th Amendment, and what it talks about, it's talking about representatives shall be apportioned among several states according to their respective numbers. It doesn't say representatives of states. This is talking about federal representatives.
It is, that part is.
And there's nothing in it that talks about county representatives. As I look at this,
You have to read section 1. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States.
Nor deny any person within jurisdiction equal protection of the laws.
Equal protection. It means equal voting.
Well, the thing is
Is that the right piece, Mr. Director?
well, and I would take exception to it because, I mean, granted, I'm not a lawyer,
Yeah.
but I feel that the way our country was set up, this Constitution was written and amended by common people just like yourself and me. And so it wasn't lawyers that were out there deciding what it was saying. It was common people. And the whole idea is protection for an area, for Maryland or Massachusetts or whatever the state might be. And I mean, the same thing applies in Wyoming, Weston County, Niobrara County, Fremont County. We should all get equal representation. We count everybody as if they haven't done something wrong, as one person that get their vote. So I can choose my representative from Weston County to represent me in our legislature, or my senator. And so when I look at it, we get our one vote. And granted, it may not be equal, but sometimes equal isn't the best thing. And so, anyway, I guess what I would say is, I think we need to look at this a little bit beyond just the numbers all saying everybody has exactly the same weight when you go down to pass legislation. Because even though we have that, right now, we don't really have the same weight. I don't feel like I'm getting the same weight down in Cheyenne as people from Laramie County. I mean, because they have more people, and presently, Weston County, we've got 2 half representatives, if you want to say it that way, and 2 half senators, because, and like was already brought up, there can be conflicting views that they're having to look at and balance between counties.
Some of my people that vote for me say I'm a half-wit. Well, those are probably the ones that don't vote for me.
Now, there's some of us that get called that fairly often. But anyway,
Thank you.
that's the concerns I have, and I really appreciate you coming.
State your name for the record.
Oh, sorry, Alan Slagle from Weston County.
Former Representative Alan Slagle. It's good to see you. Now, can we talk just a little bit about comparing counties to the states and the U.S. Constitution?
Sure.
So the U.S. Constitution was drafted, as a result of the unsuccessful Articles of Confederation. And the states came together and they drafted it. And they had to figure out a basis to come together and form their government. And so the states, in some sense, are sovereign. They were 13 sovereign entities to form and draft this Constitution. And the first president being George Washington. The thing didn't get ratified until the Bill of Rights came along. But counties didn't get together to form the state. Counties have been peeled off from the state. We originally had 5 counties or 6 counties, I can't remember. And you've seen those old maps where the counties went all the way up. And we were part of Sweetwater County over in my neck of the woods. So counties don't have that same element of sovereignty that these states that form the Constitution and the basis of our government has. That's different. Counties are political subdivisions. And in Wyoming, this says how you can change one county and make it 2, or take 2 and make it 1. You can't do that. There's nothing in this that says we can take Hawaii and Alaska and put them together and call them one state. So this is the element that's different. So counties, I honestly think we probably have too many counties because it's too difficult to fund smaller counties. It really is. But people like having them. Nebraska has gotten rid of, they had a proposal to get rid of like a quarter of their counties over time. There are counties that don't exist in Nebraska anymore as they haven't kept up with population. I'm not advocating for that, but I'm telling you, they're not magic like a state is. They don't enjoy the same political connection and sovereignty to the creation of the U.S. government. Your turn.
I guess I would agree with that counties are formed. And I mean, you brought it up. I mean, we start off with 5 counties, then as the population grew, they established more counties, divided out, and became a county. And I mean, in a sense, that is a type of sovereignty. When you gather together and form your county and incorporate or whatever you do to actually form that county, I mean, who collects the taxes? The county is the one that collects the taxes for the state. I mean, really, if we were just a true subdivision, the state should we should have our Department of Revenue should collect taxes for all the counties, and we shouldn't even have to worry about having clerks. I mean, they would work for the Revenue Department. I mean, it'd be my opinion, but the way it's set up, we're set up as basically sovereign entities as counties. It looks to me like.
Fair enough. This is fun. All right, Mr.
Thank you.
Really good to see you.
Yeah.
Mr. Curley, we'll get the commissioner first, and then we'll go to Mr. Curley. So, we gotta have a plan to get out of here, you guys. We said we wouldn't go any later than 9, and I want to respect that for everybody. So, What we do with this, I don't really know. This committee's got to get together and make a recommendation back to the bigger corporations committee. And I don't think we're gonna be able to debate that tonight. So we're gonna have to maybe get together with Zoom and talk about possible recommendations, if any, to the committee. One recommendation is we can't see how to fix it. And that's just housekeeping, I'm telling you, just so I want to make sure that we get out by 9. Commissioner, welcome. Keep going.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to push back on you.
Good.
Because I'm going to channel Justice Alito here, based on this, what I brought up before.
Yes, ma'am.
And so let me quote for
Okay.
you. After much debate, Congress eventually settled on the compromise that now appears in this Section 2 of the 14th Amendment. Under that provision, House seats are apportioned based on total population. But if a state wrongfully denies the right to vote a certain percentage of the population, its representation is supposed to be reduced proportionally. Enforcement of this remedy, however, is dependent on action by Congress, and notably that remedy was never used during a long period. Voting rights were widely abridged. In light of the history of Article 1, Section 2 of the original Constitution, and Section 2 of the 14th Amendment,
I love this. You're
it
doing
is
great.
clear that the apportionment of seats in the House of Representatives was based in substantial part on the distribution of political power among states, and not merely on some theory regarding the proper nature of representation. It is impossible to draw any clear constitutional command from this complex history.
Wow.
So, thank you.
I love that. Thank you very much for doing that. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Curley.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman.
So before you get, is Charles Curley your brother?
Do I have to say that in public? Yes, he is.
Okay.
I'm here to speak in favor of Mr. Slagle's plan, as I understand it. Were I not less sanguine than he about the chances of prevailing in federal court on a question of federal constitutional law, I'd be a full supporter of his plan. But I have focused, as you're now aware, on trying to craft a Wyoming constitutional issue for Wyoming courts and Wyoming judges. But I will say, I'd like to say that the original decision saying back in 59, was it, saying that, okay, federal court door is now open to apportionment challenges in the state, was a bad decision. The Sims decision, the Reynolds v. Sims decision, I think Justice Clark and another justice that concurred with, I think he had a good point. The court, all it had to say was Alabama legislature's violating the 14th Amendment. It didn't have to say a word about one man, one vote, equal population districts, and all the rest of it. I think there was a 6, 1 dissent, 2 concurrences. The dissent, I think, is even the better opinion. And I concur with the reading I've heard on why you want to look at both Article 1 and Article 2 of the 14th Amendment. I think Alito is right on that. That's the remedy. This modern one man, one vote stuff is all painted on by a liberal Warren court. And maybe it should be challenged, and maybe it would win on a challenge in the more conservative court. So I do like Alan's plan.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Curley. Thanks a lot. Say hi to your brother.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Come on up.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys coming up here. We spent 2 nights in Cheyenne to talk to you. Now you get to spend a night up here to talk to us.
There you go.
I'm just a concerned citizen from Weston County. A lot has been said here tonight about the Constitution, and it is the supreme law. No judge or representative or senate can change the Constitution federally or state. because it's we the people that have that power, and it's very clear. But when the founders founded this, they came out and said, we gave you a constitutional free republic as long as you can hold it.
It's a great quote.
Yep, and we are guaranteed by the federal constitution to a republic form of government in the state of Wyoming. And that is what we have in Washington, D.C. It's not a democracy. They're trying to make the states run as a democracy, and we don't have to. The federal constitution guarantees us a republic form of government, which is, we could go just to what Alan said, 2 senators, that's where you get your equal representation. The senator, then the Cheyenne can outvote us because they have more representatives. But we have equal say in the Senate.
There is a tradition of Christian martyrdom. Charlie is not the first and not the last, and I think was probably aware that he could become a Christian martyr even in life.
Well, I would certainly categorize him as a martyr, but there's been martyrs ever since the cross. And the martyrs that went before us, they weren't clinging to religion or tradition. Neither was Charlie. Him and the martyrs that went before us, they were clinging to Christ, who had changed their life. So Charlie's boldness wasn't new. It's been happening for over 2,000 years. Evil has always tried to silence the truth. And if they think they can silence the truth by death, it has never worked.
Okay, so that is protecting every man's vote. And it gets really complicated if the big counties don't like that we get what we get constitutionally. They can divide. And I've heard there are people in like Lance Creek wanting to, or KC wanting to split Natrona County because they get no representation. Casper runs that county, and they should divide. That's what we did when we left Crook County. We wanted our own representation. Sorry, just a little. And so that is constitutional. It's there. It's clear cut. But when you start talking weighting votes, you get into so many issues. There's no way that we can solve that. But getting back to the districts, we all agree that districts are set by the Constitution. That's county districts. Here's another problem. We had a problem here with an election. Chip Nyman, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning it, had an issue with his election. Okay? We in Weston County had an issue with our election. We went through the process, the next step now is if we want to complain about it, we have to be a registered voter in Weston County to file a complaint with the county attorney because the state's attorney general said that's a county issue. Okay, now how does Mr. Nyman get justification in Weston County because he's not a citizen here? So he can't even bring the complaint against it because he's from Crook County. And it's just a mass menagerie of, when I was in Cheyenne, I told you we sent 5 people down to put in a representative that didn't even live in the district. Put the representative here. That can't be. That's not American people. Let's just keep it simple. Heck with the torpedoes, full speed ahead. We have the Constitution that says that. Years ago, a group of us brought Sheriff Mack in here. 2 sheriffs out of Arizona challenged this constitutional carry permit deal. And they took it to the Supreme Court. We had a dinner with him down here, and he came out with a 10th Amendment. And the sheriff that we had at that time was Bill Ware, and he was a 10th Amendment sheriff. And that 10th Amendment guarantees that the federal government can't tell us how to elect our representatives. That's a state issue. Nowhere did we give that away. And if they want to get nasty about it and they really want to uphold the Constitution, hold us to it, we have the right to succeed. It's in the Constitution.
I think you might be on thin ice there, a couple of those things, but keep going.
So I say stick to the constitutional grounds. Take it to the court. If somebody wants to go, take the 10th Amendment, see if they uphold it, because they're violating the 10th Amendment with the 14th Amendment by trying, and just in the last election, then they tried to deal with Georgia's election. The Supreme Court goes, that's a Georgia issue. We can't touch that. So how are they touching ours? It was the wrong question asked in the right court to get the decision for the people that brought the lawsuit. And that's simple. And I just keep it simple. Let's stick to Republic form of government. That's all I have. Thank you.
And your name, sir?
Danny Val,
B.A.
BAU.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Bell. Who else would like to testify before the committee? Who else? Hey, here's a good fella. Well, Mr. Speaker, welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Mr. Chairman. I haven't been called young fellow in quite a while, so thank you.
You're younger than me.
What hasn't turned gray is falling out, so I guess we'll
I had that race. I lost both.
Well, I'm close behind you. I don't have a plan. I can't come up here and try to give you guys any kind of a directive on what I think would work really well. I guess I'm up here just to tell you that I think that the whole premise of this, and I really appreciate Mr. Bowles' testimony and the fact that I think really this boils down to, are we or are we not going to follow the Constitution? That was the question that was posed to me. Is if we can't follow the Constitution, then let's change it so that we can. And I think that was the catalyst for me that really drove the narrative and why I did this and brought this. The piece of legislation that come from the Senate, I didn't bother to worry too much about ours from the House because we knew we had mirror bills coming from both sides. And so the support of it was the fact that when I talked to my constituents here in my district, which I represent the more than half, their heart was, we want to follow our Constitution. And we want a Constitution that's been ratified by the people, and we want to be able to stand behind it, because when we swear to uphold that Constitution, we have a responsibility. And I think that was the thing that drove me in this, is that whether or not we can come up with some kind of a system, because as I sat back there and listened to it, when you started going on percentages and things like that, you know, your eyes start to roll, and you're just, even as speaker, my mind's trying to go through, and you mentioned it, Mr. Chairman, the logistics of that and the posturing and the maneuvering in that, I wouldn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. And so I think when I've got people in my community here and in my district that are saying, if we can't abide by the Constitution, then we need to change it so that we can. And if that would be, you know, something that everybody can get behind, then that's what it's about. But my whole job in this has been to represent the voices of the people that I represent. Whether or not I agree with this and try to do it or anything like that, I mean, there's a part of me that when you were talking about the fact that Weston County has basically 4 representatives, you know, but these folks want us to look at our Constitution and say, you know what, Weston County does not have a senator. They don't have a representative. And according to our state constitution, they should. So that's why we're doing this. And that's why I really appreciate all the efforts of these folks. I love these folks. These are, as you guys all got a good view of tonight, these folks love this country. And they love our Constitution. And these men that have gotten up here, and these ladies, I don't know what their service has been, but these guys went and signed their name on the line to go and protect our Constitution. And a lot of folks did and couldn't come back to fight for it. They did it on the line. That's why I'm their representative, and that's why I'm up here to tell all of you is that we have a responsibility to the people that we represent to do something about this. We can't just hope that this will go away and kind of have the idea that, you know, well, it's in italics, we don't really have to, but these folks want to see us write something down and draw a line in the sand, and then they can follow it. There is something in this, if I may, Mr. Chairman, that is a concern of mine. And that is that we are speedily moving toward a rural representation that is quickly disappearing. I did some math there early on, when you start to look at some of the counties and their populations and their ability to be able to have a say in the amount of taxes that they pay and the responsibility they have for the amount of surface area that they're responsible for. I think it takes 11 counties to equate to just the population. You can fact check me on this, but I think it's Gillette, Wyoming. 11 rural counties total, all voters in those counties cannot outvote just the simple town of Gillette, Wyoming. And so I think that's another part of this, it's a side issue, but I think it's something that we better be very cognizant of, is this, because of Wyoming's rural nature versus urban, that we are quickly moving toward a situation where we, as we redistrict, we can go in and take a portion of a city and quickly outnumber a lot of folks that when they have the chance to vote about a property tax increase, and it's going to affect them dramatically because of the sheer volume of land area for a school district or whatever, their voice has been greatly diminished. And so those are considerations as well. If Niobrara County had one senator, and Jefferson actually called the Senate the cooling tray. And that was the,
He used the word saucer.
oh, cooling saucer, the cooling tray, cooling saucer. Okay. Anyway, yeah.
It's a great story.
It is, and what he was, I think what he was trying to get at is that, when you've got representation based on population, that's where those dollars are spent, but we send it to the Senate, and we give even Wyoming 2 senators to be able to combat how many congressmen out of California or New York were able to put together and send to them. Suddenly, a rural, low population area has to be brought to the table, because we can't do this without you. I would love to see Niobrara County have that same authority and that same ability to slow this thing down and to say, you know what, if you don't take us into consideration, we will have something to say about whether or not this passes, even though we only have 2,268 people in our county. No different than Wyoming's less than 600,000 versus California or others. And I know it's in the Constitution, but those are the real concerns that the people that I talk to every day are worried about, is the fact that our voice is diminishing quickly. And if we don't look at this from a real thoughtful way, then pretty quick, a lot of the folks that are going to be carrying a lot of the labor, the weight of our tax base and everything like that, their voice is gone. So we've got to be wise about how we do this and how we respect those lines. And does the state of Wyoming have the guts to say, we're going to challenge the federal government on this because it's hurting us, the way we're doing this. The way you want us to do this, ladies and gentlemen, is harming our state's ability to be able to even function. And so I think those are the underlying things that are in this that are so important. And that's why it's important. Even though I don't live and work in Weston County, and that's another part of this. I've listened a lot to the conversation, and this has just been awesome. And I want to thank all of you guys for coming up here. This is what needs to happen. I don't get to Weston County enough. I don't. I live in the northern end of Crook County. That's just a fact. I'd love to be able to come down to every commissioner meeting and get chewed on or whatever, every school board meeting, and have the opportunity to have somebody chew my hind end for something I've done, or they see what I've done, or get accolades or whatever. I try to have as many town halls in this area as I possibly can. I try to be as available as I can. I took 3 phone calls from people in this county on my way down here. I remedied 2 of the situations by being able to have connections to send those people on to somebody that could actually answer their questions. But those are the kind of things that I deal with. It would be awesome for these folks to have their own representation. Somebody they rub shoulders with, and somebody when they walk in Deal Supermarket in Upton, they're going to run into their representative. Right now, they've got a snowball's chance in a hot place that I'm running into anybody in Deal Supermarket. And that's the other part of this that's needing to be negotiated. And so all that to say this, thank you. Thank you for your time and for your effort in this, because this is no small feat. This has been a long time coming, and I told Danny Val when he told me when we started down this road, you're going to get me killed. And he's tried very diligently to make sure that comes through. And so, but we're here, and you guys are hearing these conversations, and I appreciate the respect that you've shown my constituents, my people here in Weston County. I thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules and making time to come here and put this together so that they can air their grievances and their concerns And we can listen to real problems that these people are having, and hopefully, at some point through this, come up with a solution that'll preserve our state and preserve the rural nature of it, and make sure that we continue to bring autonomy to the people of the state of Wyoming, where they have their voices heard in a way that actually is meaningful. So with that, without any questions, I will.
I think folks here are very fortunate to have your leadership, as we are in the legislature. So it's a privilege to have you come here, Mr. Speaker. I know that it feels like we need to save rural counties and that we have to preserve this representation. And it's very important. And it's important because there is a framework of the United States Constitution that might apply here. But it seems the other side of the coin is there will be people, Mr. Speaker, in the city of Gillette, city of Cheyenne, who will feel that they have lost some of their voting weight, their voting chutzpah, their power, and they will bring a lawsuit. The lawsuit will be filed. It could be on the same grounds as the Gore v. Carpet lawsuit as before. It could be very identical. Would it play out any differently? I'm not sure that it would. I don't think there's been that much change in the courts. And I think they have a legitimate right. If they don't have the reputation that they had before, they've lost something, just like you feel you've lost something. So I don't have that answer. I do know, though, I hear about changing the Constitution. And we could make words in the Constitution fit whatever plan that we are going to do. We can make that happen. But the law, we propose constitutional amendments. We don't ratify them. The people of Wyoming ratify them. What happens if all those big voters in Gillette and the big block of voters in Cheyenne, the big block of voters in Casper, refuse to ratify your proposal? Then we've tried to change the Constitution and it's not ratified. That leaves us exactly where we are now. So I'm actually not even sure that changing the Constitution is a possibility that could work, because I don't think you have the votes. To you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Chairman, the statement that I learned when I was a very young man, the answer is always no until you ask. So I think that's something we have to propose that to the people of the state of Wyoming. And I think the people of the state of Wyoming realize how things are changing. And you're right, I just gave you the example of how many rural counties it would equate to one town. But that is as good an example as I can think of, sir, as the gravity of what we're dealing with, because our ruralness is what many times makes us, and I would say makes us Wyoming. It's that tenacious, a willingness to never give up and to continue to fight, and no matter the odds, to always, always, always fight and never give up. And so I would just say that, sir, that we're going to say it's always no until we ask the people of the state of Wyoming.
You sounded like Winston Churchill there. Never give up, never give up, never give up. Nice to see you, Mr. Speaker. Safe travels on Westwood. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut. I do apologize. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I couldn't agree with you more. And we've been looking at this. I mean, ever since I've been coming up here visiting with you guys, we've been talking about this, trying to figure this out, trying to figure a way that we could actually get it done. Not just talk about it, but actually get something done. So one of the things I'm doing research over the last few days is one of the things we haven't talked about is an act of Congress. Because if there were an act of Congress, if our congressional delegation put something forward supporting our Constitution, then that overrides the court precedents because it's a law that was passed by Congress. And so what are your thoughts on possibly looking at that remedy?
Just for clarity, are you saying that an act of Congress could override the 14th Amendment?
Mr. Chairman, no, but it's a court interpretation of that part of it, so they could put some sidebar boards in to help remedy the situation with the states, because we do have the 10th Amendment as well.
I think it's an uphill battle, but let's hear from Speaker Nyman, we might. Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
Representative, or Senator Steinmetz. I mean, I think it's a very real possibility, and again, I'll go back to the idea, until you ask, the answer is always no. And so, I guess with the change in the dynamics of our national legislature right now, I think that if there was ever one time that we could probably really float that and see what the feeling was out there, then I think right now is the time. And I think it would behoove us all to support that kind of move, to ask the question, to pursue options. And so, I mean, I know there's other times prior to this that would have probably not been worth the error it would have taken to bring that out. But I think right now, I think it would be something that could be broached, and I think it would be thoughtful consideration. Considering where we're at right now, in my opinion.
Can we just ask Mr. Director, and you can say no, but on the generic ability of Congress to pass a law that impacts a court's interpretation of the United States Constitution?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I suggested this in that memo, that a possible option could be an Article 5 convention, call for an Article 5 convention.
Then we're changing the Constitution.
They're changing the Constitution. And you have a large number of states, whatever their political persuasion are, that are rural in nature. And of course, it's a heavy lift to get an Article 5 convention. It's never been done before. But that is one option to amend the Constitution to allow states to redistrict as they see fit.
With regards to Congress passing a law that affects a constitutional interpretation of a court, I'm having a hard time finding. Legislature tries to give court direction, they can look at this and look at that. I'm having a hard time seeing where that would go.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I could conceive of some changes to like the Voting Rights Act that may help around the edges. But I don't know if federal legislation, I haven't thought about it enough to see whether it could really get to that issue, the court issue or not.
Fair enough. Okay, good question. Senator Bowen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so in terms of, proposing solutions or potential solutions, I wonder if we could, we mentioned New Hampshire briefly. That's the one where their house is literally, 200-300 people. And that is
400, I think.
Yeah, it's, so whatever it be here in Wyoming, you take the population of Wyoming divided by Niobrara County's population is probably 200 something, right? Would that be a possibility, Mr. Speaker? Obviously, it would really change the House, and maybe, that's made up. And of course, the New Hampshire Senate is only 20 some odd people, so maybe the House could take the lead there. But obviously, that would change the dynamic of the House quite a bit. But there is an example of how that does in fact work. And another state with a relatively small population. So, what would you think of that?
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Warner, absolutely. I mean, it's working right now in that situation. That would have to be something people would have to decide. If that's something that they wanted to pursue and they would look at the costs affecting, that were going to be incurred with that, then I'm sure that they would have to take that into consideration and say that would be a way to do it. I mean, I've even heard a suggestion of get rid of the desks in the chamber and put a bench in there, and we all have to sit next to each other and make room for everybody and have it, that way. That was a suggestion that was actually made. So I don't know how that would work. But anyway, I guess to your point, the way to answer it is absolutely that could work. And it would follow both the Constitution. It would allow following of our state and our federal Constitution. And that would be certainly something that the people of the state of Wyoming could have that presented to them. And if they decided that they wanted to do that, to provide the ability of the rural districts to have that kind of representation, then you open the idea and provide for the idea of a reduced size in the Senate, but definite reflection of the population in their vote and their weight of their vote in their Congress. And so that would be the House.
Go ahead, Senator Bonner. I think that House size would be roughly 250 people.
Correct.
Go ahead, back to
And
you.
just look at a picture of New Hampshire House, it's like the US House where they literally just have chairs all around, there's no desks, like there's a chair that you would sit in. And you know, I'm sure we can make it work if we wanted. Maybe your per diem would be a little different, I don't know. But to be clear, I'm not sure if that would take a constitutional amendment. That's something that the legislature could do without a constitutional amendment. And on that topic,
I think you're right. I think we could, that is a conceivable thing. The nightmares to the director, and he may see other difficulties.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it wouldn't take a constitutional amendment except for Senator Boner's further point that you would have a smaller Senate.
Yeah, that part would.
Yeah, because the House can only be 3 times as big as the Senate under the current Constitution.
They can be the same size.
Yes, they can be this, it's gotta be twice as big that the House does as the Senate, and it can't be more than 3 times.
So that means if the Senate were also proportional, then you just, so we have 250 people in the Senate, then we'd have 500 people in the House.
You know, Mr. Chairman, they told me that the reason I went to law school is so I didn't have to do math, and that's really the truth. But I tried to in this memo, and I think if you give Niobrara County 1 representative, and you don't, or 1 senator, excuse me, and you don't make the districts any more than 10% bigger than what Niobrara County is, then you're looking at 213 members in the Senate.
That works.
And you've got to have at least double the current constitutional provision in the House, so at least 426 in the House.
Be some great parties. Go ahead.
And see, and that's the thing, I mean, those are the kind of discussions that would need to take place. That would be real dollars that would have to be figured out. Is that something that the people of the state of Wyoming would support? I don't know. I think there's some folks out there that would love to see that. I think there's some other folks that have real heartburn over the thought of growing government, and so, but you're growing representation. But there again, that's for the people to decide. Let them decide that. If that's something that they want to do, then we as their representatives would follow their lead and listen to their will and do our very best to make sure that it's implemented, so.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Anybody else for the speaker? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
We're going to take as much public comment. We're trying to wrap it up, but Mr. Representative Williams, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee, and I'd like to repeat nothing that's been said tonight. The only thing I'd like to repeat is thank you. This is fantastic, and thanks for time, effort, hours, dollars, days of your life you'll never get back. We appreciate it, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Representative. All right, who's next? Come on up, Ms. Bonner.
This is just a question that popped into my head as all of you were speaking. When Wyoming became a state, did not Congress accept our Constitution as constitutional?
They did.
So then a judge overruled Congress in 1964?
Yep.
In essence, go ahead, Mr. Director. Help me out with this.
Unfortunately, having written a lot of laws that get later found to be unconstitutional, it happens all the time. The courts find that acts of legislation are unconstitutional. Under the American system of 3 branches of government, that's the role of the courts.
Ms. Bowman?
Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
The right button.
You did well.
Okay, Mr. Chairman and committee members, my name is Carl Lacey. I am the constitutional representative of Weston County. I'd like to thank you for holding this meeting here at the senior center. I had some thoughts. I'm not near as elegant as our speaker nor some of you, some of the other people here. My thought is we need to follow the Constitution however we get there. We hope, We need to return the people's right to at least one senator and one representative as a district according to county lines as defined in Article 3, Section 3 of the Wyoming State Constitution. That is my basic premise. That's all I'd like to say, and I thank you for this opportunity to say that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lacy. We appreciate you too. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Welcome.
I had to change my thought and I got lost.
Just real quickly, my name is Dan
All this
Fouch,
information.
and somebody mentioned up grassroots earlier this evening. Well, let's keep in mind, it's the grassroots is why you guys are here tonight. It's the people in this room that's been working on this for months, some for years. So I do thank you so much for coming and listening to us.
We thank you. Thank you very much. All of you really nice to us. We appreciate it. Anybody else? Mr. Bow.
I had to change my.
An afterthought,
Yes,
we're
sir.
talking about Cheyenne not getting their representation, and they have the population. But why should somebody that lives in an apartment in Cheyenne be able to run just as much of this state as a rancher out here that's got 5,000 acres, that's paying probably 10 times the property tax that person in there is? Where's his representation? Because he don't have equal representation. He pays more than this guy, but this guy gets to decide what property tax he pays. So where's that equal representation there?
I don't know the answer, sir, but in fact, we're going to get some emails on what you just said.
And thanks again for coming tonight. When I was at Cheyenne, I said the people wanted better, we deserve better, and I think we are doing better doing these. And I thank all of you again, and I'm sure I speak for this room. And Mr. Knapp has come down to some of our meetings. We're all Wyoming Knights. We're all in this boat. We either swim or sink.
Except for that guy in that apartment in Cheyenne.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Sue Morales, I was wondering if there's going to be any other meetings of the subcommittee, or if you're just going to meet with the joint committee? Or has that been decided?
I don't think it's been entirely decided. I suspect we'll have to have another meeting where we just kind of talk. But that meeting, we'd probably do it by Zoom, and that meeting would be open to the public. We will take public comment, but we probably, rather than have proposals, we just have to decide, what are we going to tell the committee? What is our report to the committee going to be? And I'm not really sure what it is, but we're not going to do that behind closed doors. We will do it in a meeting. We have to, that sounds just like my ringtone, so.
That's not me.
It's okay. I suspect we'll have to have some kind of subsequent housekeeping follow-up that we will make it available for you guys to listen to and provide public comment. Does that sound reasonable, committee? I don't know of another way. We're too tired now to write something up, and I think we got to think about it.
Is Chuck Gray coming on?
I don't know. Does anybody want to speak again from Zoom land?
Mr. Corinthy has his hand up.
Okay, well, let's hear from Mr. Corinthian. If Secretary of State Gray wishes to speak to us, of course he can. Mr. Corinthian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did a little more homework based on something that Director Ulrich said. There are multiple provisions that I didn't mention in the Constitution if we're going to pursue a weighted voting. And right now I'm tracking no less than a dozen that have to be addressed, including portions of Article 16 having to do with investment and loans. So if the proposers of these possibilities could draw up their constitutional amendments to address all of the Article 16, Section 6 and 12, all throughout Article 3, where it specifically states that the agreed by 2/3 of all the members of each of the two houses language can be addressed to make that weighted voting work the way they intend. I'm just not comfortable saying, oh, we'll figure it out, we'll interpret it, because the problem we're facing right now is based on an interpretation of clear language in the Constitution that's not being followed. Also, another thing that has popped up in my head is things like chamber rules, management council policy, joint rules, and then what we now have in split joint committee votes by chamber within the same joint committee. How are all those things affected by the weighted vote? I know we were told, hey, it doesn't affect the committees, but statutorily, committees are assigned with a certain amount of members from one chamber and another because of the number of people each chamber represents. So House committees tend to be bigger than Senate committees. So how are all of those, really this is just the nuts and bolts. I want to see how the machine could possibly run with that equal representation of population across committees when one chamber tends to have twice the amount of committee members. And if we could get an idea of how all that will be addressed and we can make it, you know, a functional plan that doesn't run into the same Article 3, Section 3 problem we're having right now. It says this, but instead we do this. I would be very interested. Again, I'm not for or against any policy being proposed. I just really, I need to see how the machine is going to operate.
Thank you, Mr. Parenti. Any questions for Mr. Parenti? I think he does bring up a good point. If you have other things that you want to send us to flesh out your proposals, we probably should do that. I think we should take 2 or 3. See, when is the Corporations Committee meeting? So I think we should try to take 2 or 3 weeks to think about this and then come up with something to submit to the Corporations Committee along about mid-October. That's reasonable. I don't think we should do it right away. I think that would give you time to submit more things if you wish. I'm not sure we're going to have any more in-person meetings, but we'll certainly do at least a Zoom. Mr. Secretary, welcome. Wow, you got out of your car and you're in front of the Capitol.
Yes, it was a long journey, but I got back.
Good for you.
Sort of. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I've been listening very intently, really appreciate the conversations, really appreciate all the citizens who testify there this evening, and this is a very important issue. Have talked about this with the citizens of Weston County and rural voters for some time, going back to the redistricting in 2022, which was quite contentious. I'll never forget, it was my last vote on the floor actually as a House member, and I can vote now. But you know, I think that this is a really important conversation. I think the weighted voting is something that needs to continue to be explored. I would ask the subcommittee to continue to explore it. I'm not saying that the proposal that was presented here this evening is the right formula, but I think it is an interesting starting point, an interesting point for us to consider. You know, I think that, you know, having the at-large elections in counties is something that could have some implications. I would want to think about that a little more and going back to at-large, but it's a starting point. What was proposed here, I would push back a little bit. I have some concerns on amending the state constitution. One of them, and the colloquy with Ms. Bauman was really, really interesting, and I think she did a really good job of laying out the precedent here. And one of the reasons why we would not want to amend the state constitution is if a court revisited this issue, which happens all the time. And I think with some of the changes in the composition of the federal judiciary, President Trump doing a great job of appointing in judges that are revisiting some of these issues, that this could be revisited down the line. I mean, these 60s and 70s decisions, many of them have been overturned. We could go down the list, and this is one of the many that could be revisited in the future. So if it is revisited and the state constitutional provision is no longer there, well, then it's no longer there. And I think one of the things that came out of that exchange was that the decision of the judge wasn't to ignore anything. It was that if they were in conflict, then which one would win out. And so I ultimately think amending the state constitution for that reason, I think it would be bad for rural Wyoming, bad for Wyoming as a whole. And I would push back a little bit on that, and open to continuing to talk about it. I know many individuals have taken that position as well, but I would push back a little bit on that one. I think the weighted voting needs to continue to be examined in terms of a solution that would comply with both the federal and state constitutions. And I will note, as Mr. Crenny noted in his testimony earlier tonight, his first round of testimony, that President Trump has issued an order for the Department of Commerce to carry out a new census. This is huge, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Case, this is a big deal. President is